Welcome to the Serbian Football Show. Actually, we might as well change the name of the show. Welcome to the Alexander Mitrovic Worship Hour, or maybe the Mitro is God Pod. May work as well. What else is there to say? Welcome to the show. This is your host, Miller, speaking. A lot of things to talk about today, including our last two games versus Portugal and Azerbaijan. Well, there are many, many topics about those games, of course. Joined today by my co-hosts, my man Luca from Washington, D.C. Luca, how are you doing on this beautiful day?
Hey, man. 7 points out of 3 games. I'm doing fantastic, dude.
I hear you. Smiling at work all day. Can't go wrong with that. Valley, how's it? I know you were up at 2:30 to watch the game in Australia, but how are you feeling otherwise?
All I want to know is this just rumour or vicious innuendo that Serbia is expecting a mass baby boom after my call for mass population on the last podcast? And could that even be more of a prediction after the last two games?
Mass baby boom and mass child.
I'm telling you, 10 million people by 2022, by the end of the World Cup. That's what we're in for. So it's not a lot. People get to it. If you hold a passport, a lista carta, you're in. All right.
All right. And our man Alexa from Belgrade. Alexa, how are you doing on this late Belgrade evening?
Extremely confused because I went through about 78 heart attacks today. In the 95 minutes that lasted, and to Veli's point, I don't think we can expect a big contingent of babies in Serbia, but I think in Ireland and Portugal and Azerbaijan, we can expect a lot of immigrants to come in because there were sexual relations, there were nasty things that took place on the pitch in those places, and the father of them is Alexander Mitrovic. He's going on and off. So I was in the shower actually before for about 2 hours. I had to get the filth of those goals off. So if I sound a little bit cold and if I sound a little bit confused, that's why. But it was worth it because of the wins we got, and we have so much to talk about. So I have a big smile on my face, as I'm sure all you guys do. So let's go.
That's right.
Alex, close the window because Prome will kill us all after that shower.
You got it.
That's right. A lot to talk about, as you mentioned. Two absolutely filthy goals by our boy Mitro today against Azerbaijan, but we'll get to that game a little bit later. We haven't had a show since after the Ireland game, so let's talk about the big game against Portugal on Saturday. 2-2 final. A very good performance, in my opinion. Portugal, they basically scored on their, well, if you don't count the last chance of the game and the miraculous leg of God, let's call it, by Stefan Mitrovic. Well, we could maybe 3 chances, but they didn't have many chances. They scored on basically, their 2 chances that they had all game. And even those 2 chances, if we had better positioning and if Nikola Milenkovic did, a better job marking Jota, those goals shouldn't have happened anyways. A very good performance. We went down 2 goals. Pixie made the great adjustments at halftime, made the correct subs, correct changes, and we had a big result in that game. Came back. I'll say this, the first 25 minutes of the second half was some of the best football we played in a very, very long time, and I was just sitting there, kicking back, enjoying one of the finest displays of footballing that we've seen from our national team in a long time, and also that second goal. What can you say about that attack, the counter? Filip Kostic, Nemanja Radonic, the difference maker when he came in that wing back at halftime, just changed the game with his pace, destroyed his counterpart there, Joao Cancelo, who was arguably one of the best right backs in all of Europe, and he didn't look at like that last Saturday when Radonic was running in roughshod. Massive point, very important point going into the rest of the group as well against our number 1 competition for first place now, after how these results have went. Luca, what were your thoughts on the Portugal game? How are you feeling after that one?
Mixed feelings on the Portugal game, I think, as we all have here. I will say this, though. When I saw that lineup, and I was like, this is the most attacking lineup I think I've ever seen a Serbian coach put up. And I said to my little brother who I was watching the game with, I was like, that's a man number 1 with balls, and that's a man that I would love to play for if I was a player, because that shows ultimate confidence in your team. So I love that lineup. even though when the game started, we all saw like the gaping spaces that were just left open on the pitch, and given to Portugal. However, however, once we got our footing, and once again, I got to give credit to Pixie. Once he made the changes at halftime, we were a completely different team. In that second half, we were better than Portugal was in the first half against us, which is saying something. We played some beautiful football, and let me also say this, man. I think we've been extremely spoiled in these last three games of this qualifying cycle, or just of the quality of goals we've seen. I mean, you guys remember watching the national team over the last couple of years, and it is it's a struggle to put the ball in the net any way we can get it. People tripping over the ball, whatever it may be. It was just a struggle. These last couple of goals that were scored were just phenomenal. In regards to the Portugal game, I'll just finish with this, man. Great game for us in the second half. Horrible display in the first. Just too much space. And also, I think we just need to put together a 90 minutes of football. Win or lose, we just need to play for 90 minutes. We can't be doing this where we're playing 25, 30 minutes, and then the rest of the game we're nowhere to be seen and being ran ragged by the other team. We saw it in the Ireland game, we saw it in the Portugal game, and we saw it unfortunately in the game against Azerbaijan as well. But like I said before, it's a work in progress, and there are flashes of brilliance there with this team. You can see that the team is starting to believe in themselves. Every single game that we've had so far, we've either been down or it's been a tie game. And we've shown the resilience to step up and get the point or points when needed. So I'm very happy with the way that this is going. It looks like that slowly but surely, and maybe not even that slowly because it's only been 3 games, that Stojkovic is putting his stamp on this team, and you love to see it. And I also love the fact that when Pixie was kept being asked about that Ronaldo goal at the end, or non-goal I should say, because it may not have crossed the line, I don't know. He said, "Let's be honest."
I didn't see anything. I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't see anything either, man. I didn't see. I got to see a different angle. But when he was asked about that, and he said, "Look, if we're gonna keep talking about it, let's talk about how Ronaldo clearly scored an offside goal last time against Serbia in Belgrade and celebrated it like it was the greatest goal he's ever scored." So I love I love that as well, man, because that really when you're on Instagram and you're seeing like Buta Sport or somebody put up the quote, and you can see who liked it, and you can see that Sergey and a few other players liked it, which means that they're with Pixie, and they like that sort of edge that he has to him, which I love personally as well. And I think that edge is translating into a stamp on this team that we haven't seen in a good while. So overall, man, I'm pretty happy.
Man, I love his confidence. It's just something that we needed. We've been saying this for a long time. Our team looks a little off-kiltered, unsettled, and he just brought in that confidence right now that you can see it on the players.
Right.
Even the goals you celebrated today, the team celebration they had, they look so happy. You can tell the atmosphere is a lot better right now, Pixie. And also about the Portugal game, I think of all the games we played against the top teams in Europe and in the world, this was our best performance in a really long time. We outshot them. We had more shots on target. Possession was fairly even. We created better chances than they did all game. In the second half, particularly, I mean, even in the first half, we were starting to get going a bit. SMS was working really well in midfield. His balls were working, and then we just didn't have the end product or the final ball. And then, they scored that second goal, another milinkovic mistake. So I think we played a really good game. This is by far, in my opinion, our best performance against a good team in a really long time. And it was like watching two top quality sides play each other, which is what it should be like when we play,
right,
because our team is top quality. They just have not shown that consistently, and they haven't shown that as a team. And against Portugal, they showed that. They showed great fight. You mentioned it. 3 straight games in a row, we've come back to get a result. We were down against Ireland, came back and won. We're down 2 goals against Portugal, came back and tied. We're tied with Azerbaijan, came back and scored late to win. 3 straight results from score lines that were negative.
Right, and just to add to that, Milos, I got to give a special shout out, man, to 2 players. especially for the Portugal game. Number one, Pavlovic, man, that guy is becoming a rock in the back, and I love the way he brings the ball up and dribbles it into the midfield and the attacking third sometimes. I think we miss that a lot. Sometimes he'll lose possession here and there, but let's remember the dude is super young, and he's just been amazing under Pixie, and you love to see it, man. I think he's getting that confidence to have a starting spot in for quite frankly our defense, which we need more talent in. So I love the confidence, and then also big shout out to Stefan Mitrovic as well. Just for the Portugal game, I think was one of the best games I've seen him play for. Not only because of the goal line clearance, but also I thought he was great the whole game. I thought he showed passion in the back line. He didn't make any mistakes, and it's funny that it took only one game for me to completely change my feelings about Stefan Mitrovic, because before, let's be honest, he was blundering back there, making mistakes left and right, even in the first game. But I'm on the Mitrovic train now, so yeah, there's that, dude.
Yeah, and I think Mitrovic, we saw him struggle against Ireland, but if you remember the game against Norway when he shut down Erling Haaland, and now he shut down Portugal, and he was amazing today as well, our best defender today also, in my opinion. So clearly he's got quality. It's just his pace is, he's not the fastest defender, and sometimes he's prone to those mental lapses, but when he's on, he's clearing every ball. He's very strong, and we're going to need that going forward because our defense is insecure at the best of times. Belly, what were your thoughts about the Portugal result in the game?
If we had the opportunity to do a pod between the Portugal and Azerbaijan game, I would have been a little bit different. I've calmed down a lot, okay? And so it just goes like this. So if you think about it for 2 seconds, Pixies had the guys now, give or take. I'm not going to be absolutely precise here. So you would have had them for 9 days, something like that, 9 or 10 days.
Monday, 8
maybe.
days.
Yeah, so 8 days. He may have had 4 training sessions if he was lucky. It's not like the players are going to get fitter during the camp, right? The national team camp. They'll all come back from their clubs. They're not going to get any fitter or get any more, sharper, more precise and things like that. But it's been an opportunity for Pixie to have discussions with players, to have discussions with the team, to have discussions with individuals about where we can change in our mentality and in our mindsets to obviously produce 7 out of 9 points in this national team cycle. Look, it took the words out of my mouth, and both you and Miloš will always say it a lot more eloquently than I do, but it is work in progress. So what I think that we see is a change in the mentality of some players, whereby I think that's a direct influence of which I think it's more than likely, if not a dead set certainty, that Pixies had a word to individual players, groups of players, and the team as general to change the mindset in the playing group, and then the goodwill that he brings, obviously from his status as an absolute legend, makes that message sink in to the team and to the individual players a lot more effectively that we haven't seen possibly since that other Mirantic era. I think the second half, but can I be a little bit more brutal here? I think the first half an hour in the second half was the best football we played ever since the Norway game. Okay, so it's ever since the Norway game. And so the things that were going through my head, and I know that we guys had a debate on our chat during the Portugal game, and I used the words, this was top quality from Portugal. Now, we both understand that Milinkovic was called ball watching, especially in the first goal, but somewhat in the second goal as well. But one must understand that if he wasn't ball watching and he was man-to-man, like eyeball to eyeball, all that type of stuff, the quality of those deliveries was so good that they would have been hard to defend anyway. One must also understand that we had a period that we were possibly on top between the 17th, 18th minute mark of the first half and just after the half-hour mark, and we got into positions when we needed to get balls into the box or final passes or effective crosses, and we weren't able to do so. Yet Portugal had those two brilliant opportunities, two well-executed headers, and we're 2-0 down. So I think it's still the work in progress that we need to aspire to get to that extra level. The other thing is that after we scored the second goal against Portugal, there was a drop-off in intensity by us. And we need to remind ourselves that we need to play the entire half out, then we needed to play the entire 90 minutes out, and then we need to play the entire 90 minutes plus stoppage time, and that will come down to our mentality and to our concentration levels, of which I think Dragan Stojkovic is clearly having an influence on the playing group. And I think, as I said, the goodwill that he brings from his legendary status is helping that message sink in. Look, I absolutely agree with you. I think Strahinja Pavlovic is doing fantastically well. He's making good decisions in terms of exactly that example that you alluded to, when to bring that ball out. I know it's easy from any pundit on the sideline, but he identifies space, he takes the ball out into that space, and then he gives the first pass. So, we're right, boys. Someone blowing their nose. So that's what we have there. I've maintained this on other pods, and I maintain this for quite some time now. One of the most vital cogs that we have in our team is Nemanja Gude. I think that because he does so many simple things right, and he plays that holding midfield position so well, and we are in a position that we can do transition movements so much quicker when he's in that starting team. So again, we're fantastically happy with the result and the turnaround against Portugal. This is the other challenge that we need. This is the huge challenge that we need. We haven't had a massive scalp since the Germany game of the South Africa World Cup, and the challenge lies with the last game against Portugal in Portugal. We need that scalp, and I think Dragan Stojkovic will understand what that scalp means, because he went through those qualifying cycles when he was a lot younger. That famous 3-2 game in Partizan Stadium, for qualifying for Italia 90, all those type of things. That big scalp is a massive, massive boost to your confidence, and I think that is the next challenge that we need to get to. Obviously, if we beat Luxembourg and if we beat the Republic of Ireland in the September qualifiers, that will guarantee us the playoff spot. And again, that is not without realistic chance, although Luxembourg, took the lead against Portugal. Luxembourg beat Ireland. Obviously, they're a team on the rise who are very well organised and got some players playing in the Bundesliga and lower levels of Germany and around the lower European leagues. They will, and I agree with Dragan Stojkovic in a past interview, that will be the toughest two games of our group against Luxembourg. I agree with him wholeheartedly. But if we get 6 points in those two games, we'll guarantee ourselves at least a playoff spot, and it might come down to that last game, of which we need a first-class scalp. We'll get to the Azerbaijan game later, but I think that was just a fantastic comeback of some really high-tempo football. You can see now that people like Radonjic are making good decisions, because I think that's been a direct influence of a talk maybe that Dragan Stojkovic has had with him. Aleksandar Mitrovic has probably been a positive influence on Dragan Stojkovic. He knows what it's like in not playing for your club, so on and so forth. So all credit to them. The job is not done though, and I know that I'm going to sound unpopular, but I believe that we should, not that we can, we should be aiming higher for what we are now. We need to aim higher because we've never been, the fact is that we've never had talent. We've had talent in horrible teams. Other countries are going through a cycle where the talent is not coming through. We've always had the talent but a horrible team structure, a horrible, organisational support. We've always had the players, so hopefully we can put that all together. That's what I'm saying.
That's great points, Valley. You are right that scalp against a big side would do a lot for our confidence. And if you look at actually our results, our last 4 games, the 5-0 against Russia, the 3-1 against Ireland, beating Azerbaijan, the tie against Portugal, 4 very good performances, I would say, and big results. We even have in our last 7 games, if you don't count the penalty kick loss to Scotland, we're undefeated in 7 games. So there's some confidence and some kind of sort of continuity with the team, and hopefully that will continue. Our next game, as you mentioned, is in September at home against Luxembourg, which will be a tough match, but hopefully we'll have a full Milinkovic Stadium, and that will be a big boost for us. And it'll be tough for Luxembourg to play in that type of environment if we can get there and have a full fans in the stadium and a full crowd by then, which I think is very possible with the rate of vaccination in Serbia and all that stuff. Alexa, I know you're dying to give your thoughts on the Portugal game. What were your final assessments?
Well, hard to know where to start. The result itself is huge, not just because of the fact we got a draw against a team that we would all agree is one of the best in Europe, but the way we played. I mean, I'm just echoing the statements. By the way, all you guys made great points. Really said a lot of stuff that I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth on a lot of things. That second half, that 25-minute spell is not some of the best. It's the best I've seen us play in terms of organization. That second goal was that's the perfect team goal that you dream of. That's the type of goal that if you saw Bayern Munich do that or someone else do that, you wouldn't be surprised. It was fast, it was creative, it was gutsy, it was efficient, it was all of that. I've watched it like 500 times, and I can't get enough of it. And another thing that has been amazing is the short time span that this team has had. Now, granted, this team is, we played 3 at the back, and we played in this system sort of under Tomakovic, and these players have been around for a certain significant amount of time. So it's not like they're new to each other, but it's a different approach, different philosophy, different opponents. And the quality of the goals has been amazing. Out of the 7 that we scored, at least 3 or 4 of them were top quality goals. You'd see some of the best clubs pull off, and the other goals weren't too bad either. And it's amazing that in such a short space of time, Pixie has managed to find that. And the thing that he should get credit for as well is the adjustments that he's made. The one negative I would point out, because if there are negatives in terms of what he's done, the only negative I would say is our preparation for games. I think that that's a part that falls on the coaching staff, which was underwhelming for me to begin with, to be honest with you, and I think is shown to be somewhat underwhelming because we started all of our games slow, and all of our comebacks have really happened in the second half when Pixie was the one who was making the changes and who was inspiring the players. And I think that when you compare this coaching staff to the Slavic Muslim coaching staff, you had Rastovac, you had Zoran Filipovic, you had serious coaches there, and this coaching staff, the most experienced coach, if you will, is Goran Đorović, who was not very successful with the youth team. So that's the only part that I worry about, is the fact that we're not preparing our games very well. The goals we conceded, especially to Portugal, were very amateur, and because they're the type of goals that they always score, the crosses in the back post, the overloading of the frontal part of the box. Those are things that they should have prepared well for. So that's the only negative if I was to get out of the way. But everything else, I think, this team selection has been really good. I would like to have seen some players maybe get more minutes over time, but I think that he's given players a fair shake. I don't think there's anyone who can really go out and say that he hasn't been given an opportunity. The Portugal game itself was the start of us going with 2 strikers was gutsy, and I think was necessary, more so as a mentality boost as opposed to some sort of a tactical thing, because I was on the show, on the last show we were at, and I was talking about how overloading the midfield is absolutely crucial. And so you can imagine how much I grew when we started to play as well as we did, when we brought in another midfielder and we brought another wing back and we took one of the strikers off. It was a perfect example of how we needed to overload them and beat them at their game and create those quick counterattacking opportunities that were necessary for us. And in the first half, we struggled because we weren't able to distribute from the midfield. Portugal showed all of their organizational class. They were so composed in terms of knowing what to do on the ball because we were pressing them well. I think our movement was very good, but they were just so calm so poised. All of their passes were pinpoint accurate. Their efficiency, of course, was tremendous. I mean, despite the fact that I think both goals were preventable, both of those goals are well taken. Bernardo Silva's cross to the back post, top-notch. Schultz's header, top-notch. He scored another header today against Luxembourg. So it's not, I think Milinkovic can rest easy that he hasn't been beaten by Munchkin. He's not the only one that was beaten by Munchkin. And the second goal as well, top-quality cross from Cedric. Their positioning in defense, that final pass, which I think was something that Lucas said as well. We didn't actually play bad in the first half. We were just lacking that final pass, that final shot. And we were in positions to create those chances or to take advantage of those chances. But they were able to block that shot or intercept that pass or get it clear with a header every single time. And that's the experience they had. And we saw how threatening they were on counters because of the quality they have. But that second half, bringing in Maksimovic was important. I was skeptical as far as taking Vlahovic off because I thought he was going to one who was going to score. But the decision to pack the midfield and give more freedom to SMS really showed. SMS, I think, actually had one of his best games in a position that was not accustomed to because he was basically playing as a DM almost, which as soon as you say him as a defensive midfielder, we all get PTSD to the Switzerland game. Remember when he was placed there and he didn't do well, but in this game he was controlling the passes so well. The diagonal balls he was spraying were fantastic. He was composed in the ball. He didn't get dispossessed, and in the second half when he got more freedom, he really took over the game. He gave Tadic a little bit more freedom in a more advanced role, and Nemanja Radonjic just absolutely stole the show and was my man of the match, which I never thought I would say because anyone who knows me knows I've been highly critical of him in the past because of his lack of footballing brain, the fact that his technical abilities have sometimes lacked, but he was at his absolute best. He was fast. He was creative. He completely torched Jacques Cancelo, who's not just been good. He's been one of the best defenders in Europe this year, one of the most versatile defenders, and he toyed with him. And the fact that Fernando Santos took him off after 70 minutes shows that the precise crosses that he gave, that last pass for the Kostic goal was pinpoint accurate. His run, the chop that he did in the middle of that counterattack, he was absolutely fantastic and very good defensively as well. He was organized. He didn't make any mistakes at the back. And really almost displaced Lazovic now. Unfortunately, he hasn't owned that spot, which we saw in the Azerbaijan game when he went back to his old frailties, but he was absolutely magnificent against Portugal. And I give Pixie credit for recognizing that. We've talked about how maybe as a wingback, he's better suited than as a winger, and I think he took advantage of that. And what can you say? We'll talk about Mitrovic more as the time goes on, but he was just not just the goal he scored. The layoffs. That second goal starts from his layoff, him holding the ball off and passing it to milinkovic-savic. The goal he scores as well takes guts to put your head right where Danilo Pereira is putting his foot. The midfield was on point. The defense, I thought, was, despite the few errors we made, was very good. Popovic, his consistent bulldog approach to get Ronaldo. That moment where he's sliding 3 or 4 times to get the ball from Ronaldo and finally gets it. You can't get enough of that. Mitrovic was excellent, I think, and I think that one of the things I mentioned before was that no-nonsense defender that we've always had, at least one of those, whether it was Jagoš Vukovic or Dragutinovic or Goran Gavricic. We need one of those guys, and he's played that role very well. When you consider the heart that he shows for Serbia, he may not be the best, but he gives everything. And I actually find it kind of fitting that he's the captain because his defensive performances are much like our performances. One game he's great, the next game he looks all over the place. So that was something that I thought was very interesting. Milinkovic, he's had a bad run of games, but he's been so consistent and he's been consistently good for so long that I think you can forgive him for that. I still don't think he deserved a red card for that second tackle. And even though his games were bad, I think he's going to bounce back from it. The good thing is we saw in the Azerbaijan game that Spajic and even potentially Veljkovic, when he gets minutes, can fill in well. And as far as everything else goes, the goalkeeping situation, people are too quick to forget Dimitrovic's great performances against Portugal. That game in Lisbon when he made 15 amazing saves, it felt like. The performance against Germany as well in the friendly. He's had some really good performances, but I think his inability to judge crosses accurately, and I could get more into the last situation. I'll get more into that later because I have a rant when it comes to that. But I think it was necessary to go with Rajkovic for that game. I still think that he should have called Rajkovic for that game, and we saw in the Azerbaijan game that it was the right call to go with Rajkovic. So he's out of form, but I'm sure he's going to come back. His reflexes, his positioning is top notch, and I think I just think the performance was great. We passed the ball very well. Our physical situation was one of the points you made about us falling off at one point was, it was to be expected because we wasted so much. We didn't waste energy, but we had such a burst of effort and stamina in those first 20, 25 minutes. It was natural for us to come down. And considering the fact that this is, like you said, their second training session together, it was hard for us to, and especially because a lot of the guys in this team don't really play in that formation. I mean, milinkovic-savic does, but most of the guys, apart from the wingbacks and him, don't really play in the three at the back. So it's a completely different style that they have to adjust to. There's a lot more physical demands that come into that. And, it's hard for them to get adjusted to that. But I think that what you said, the work in progress, I think is the absolute adequate comparison here. And I think that as time's going to go on, it's going to be better and better. The fact that we got 7 points out of this cycle was fantastic, and I'll close on that because you look at the other results. Turkey dropping points against Latvia, Russia dropping points against, Cyprus or whoever it was, and Greece, drawing with Spain. The really key thing was to win those two games, that we had to win by any means necessary, and if we could get anything against Portugal, it would be great. We got it. Fortunately, we had luck on our side, which, I could get to a little bit later, but we deserve that luck because I'll just say that there have been so many instances where we were on the receiving end of calls like that. I mean, I can name 5 or 6 off the top of my head. And it was about time that one of those calls went our way. So I think that we didn't get those calls in the Russia World Cup, but you could also argue that there were times when we maybe didn't deserve it because of our bad approach. In this game, we gave everything we had. We were better than Portugal in some statistical aspects. We deserved that luck. And this is one of those rare international breaks that I didn't want to end. So just top marks all around. And also for the mentality thing, which I'll make my last point. I don't think this is a new thing. We saw in Slovenia Muslim that this is a team that had, I think, 5 or 6 comebacks and either got draws or wins out of that. We essentially came back from the Norway game after conceding late and still won it. And we had 3 comebacks in 3 desperate situations to get great results. This is a team that shows a lot of fight, a lot of character. And when you saw Alexander Milinkovic's post-game interview after he broke the record, and when you see the passion that Tadic exudes, and when you see the way that these guys play for each other, any sort of accusation that they don't care about the national team should be put to rest, and I hope I never hear it again. And the only thing that I can say is that it's typically Serbian that all these good things are happening. There's nobody in the stadium. It's a real shame because this is a team that deserves the support because things have been run well. This is a team that's giving its all. It's getting the results back, and I think we're going to keep getting those results. I think it's really good that we're not having any games in June because we usually have a bad record in the summer because of our players are usually out of form and the season's over. So getting back in September, it's going to be a long time, but I think that the optimism is going to stay until then, and it should because I think this was a great 3-day cycle, and the Portugal game was a great result, and they should be happy about it because they deserve that draw. And drawing with champions of Europe and potentially outplaying them at that, a team that's defensively organized as well, not easy to do. They should get a lot of credit for it.
Yes, and exactly. That's a lot of great points there. And I'll just say this. Pixie has been on the job for less than 1 month. He had 8 days with the team, 3 or 4 training sessions, and he was able to get us 7 points in these 3 big games. 2 massive wins that are must-wins if we wanted to finish top 2, and then a result against Portugal. People will say, lucky escape or whatever because of that last goal that wasn't allowed, but if Portugal won, it would have been a smash and grab because they did not deserve to win that game. They were not clearly better than us. I believe we outplayed them in that game, and it would have been really cruel if we would have lost on something so stupid and a chance like that. Basically, their only chance the second half, their only real chance the second half, and it came from a bad error by Dimitrovic. And I agree with him as well. Last game in Portugal, we all remember how amazing he was. Stood on his head. He literally won us a point by himself. He's still a quality goalkeeper, great shot stopper. Might just be a little bit low on confidence, and he did struggle twice in that game with balls into the box, so that seems to be his one weakness. Hopefully, we'll see what happens now. Rajkovic and him. Rajkovic did very well today against Azerbaijan, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see who gets the starting job from now on.
I would like to also make a very quick point about that last goal, because or the non-given goal, rather, the leg of God, if you will, because I do want to make a point. It's a broader point, not necessarily related to the play itself, but there are a few things we have to ask. First of all, it's another chronic display of our inability to close a game out in the last 10 minutes. I think that's the only other thing from a gameplay standpoint that I would point out. All 3 games in the last 10 minutes, we had comfortable situations. Well, comfortable, but we had winning positions or comfortable positions. And in the last 10 minutes, it's panic stations. We're not defending well. We're tripping over ourselves. We're not able to get our ball away from the halfway line. And especially in that situation, leaving Nuno Mendes unmarked who's just come off to ping a long diagonal ball's not good. Why is Ronaldo left unmarked in the box is my second question, because he was basically unmarked and Popovic was there. But, for Ronaldo, that's not really that much of an issue. And then when you consider Dimitrovic, if you see the moment, he runs out and then kind of stutters and stops, and then he commits to getting the ball. That's something that's unfortunately a product of our goalkeeping school, because we all know we don't really have guys that come out to claim the crosses. They're basically shot stoppers on the line. And that's something that I hope changes, and I think is going to change with Rajkovic. But word of advice to Dimitrovic, in those situations, you got to come out and you either commit to it all the way or you stay on your goal line. That's something that's inexcusable. And the point I do want to make is, let's be fair and let's call a spade a spade. We can make jokes and all that, and I'm all for it. The ball probably did cross the line. And if it happened to us, we would be sitting here for half an hour killing the referees and claiming it was a robbery. And I don't have anything against Portugal complaining for it. A lot of people are, criticizing Ronaldo and them for reacting like that. I mean, we would have reacted even worse. But the point I do want to make is not to defend the referees, but I think an explanation needs to be put in order. I still think that it is kind of sad that you don't have goal line technology and you don't have VAR in 2021. I mean, VAR is kind of harder to implement, even though we saw it in the Zvezda Milan game, so I don't understand why we didn't have it here. But goal line technology has been around for 10 years, and this particular situation...
Alexa, though, this is the thing. UEFA signed off, or FIFA signed off on that match that they didn't have VAR or they didn't have goal line technology.
Exactly, that was my point that I was about to make. It's not our fault.
So I beg your pardon, brother. So it's not our fault. And that's why, in a way, we need to move on from it.
Right. I agree.
Right? Yeah, let's piss ourselves laughing. Say, hvala ti Bože jednom, da nešto nama krene, because we've seen so many times in everything, in not just football, but, Milorad Čavić probably was denied a gold medal, and, what happened to Mitrovic against Switzerland, and this and that, and everything else. So, nek nam bude. You know what I mean? Like,
the only thing I wanted to do was just make a point as to the reaction of the media, because everyone's come down on us, and you've seen it in all the news. Nobody's talking about our performance. They're all talking about how, we're not technically equipped and we don't have the infrastructure, and poor Ronaldo, he got robbed, yada, yada, yada. First of all, this is FIFA's fault, because they're making billions of dollars. The money that they have should absolutely be invested into situations like this. If it's too expensive to have VAR and goal line technology in Gibraltar and San Marino, and that's why you can't have it in Serbia, then pay for it. If you're making so much money, you should fix it. And the reaction of the media is what I wanted to get at, because I agree with you 1,000,000%, and I was getting to that. I could care less about how they feel. We got robbed. And I should remind Serbian fans of this as well, because I've seen some Serbian fans trying to apologize to Portugal, quote unquote. We got essentially screwed out of not one but two World Cup knockout stages because of basically bullshit calls. And nobody, I don't want to say nobody, but very few people care then. And this has become like a national tragedy, like a global tragedy, that Ronaldo didn't score. Spare me the break. It's your fault you blew a 2-0 lead. And at the end of the day, if you're such a good team, go ahead and win the group. You have the best team in this group. You have one of the best teams in Europe. If you're such a good team, go ahead and win it. And like you said, there have been so many instances in sports, even in football, where we got screwed. I can point to the World Cup situations. If you guys remember the game against Estonia, where the ball crossed the line and was given as a goal, and then it was disallowed in that snowstorm game, and so on and so forth. It was about time that we got one of those calls to go our way. And all the credit also, I should point out, goes to Stefan Mitrovic for that second block, which is not being talked about enough, because that's a very difficult thing to do after a sliding tackle, to get yourself back on your feet, to react so quickly, where Bernardo Silva shoots very accurately at the goal, and to stick your foot out in the last second to block the shot. That is a very difficult athletic thing to do, and he deserves a lot of credit for that, because a lot of defenders will not be able to do that. So any criticism that Stefan Mitrovic gets from now on is null and void. I just wanted to get that point out.
And Alexa, let me just say, dude, the man in question here, Cristiano Ronaldo, had no problem scoring a blatant offside goal in Belgrade.
Exactly, I was about to get to that as well.
In front of Veli and me. You know what I mean? So the nerve of this guy.
That's what killed it the most. In front of me, Luca and I. Listen, it's the same principle as this. Not even 25% of the Serbian population saw this morning's game.
Right.
Or saw the game against Portugal,
right,
because it wasn't on national television. It wasn't on...
which is another issue, and it's another disgrace, but...
Yeah, but again, it's the same logic, and it's the same rules that it's beyond our control, and it was signed off by FIFA,
by UEFA,
/UEFA, because
right.
it's the UEFA, it's the Confederation of UEFA qualifiers. So if they signed off that, where the television rights go or not go to, it's they signed off on whether the country has VAR or goal line technology. Ultimately, it's not a good look for us. But the fact that the governing body signed off on it is the point where we can put our hands in the air and go, not our problem, none of our business, let's move on with life.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the part that kills me, is our population weren't able to see it live on television. I think, what was it, on Nova 1, Alexa, or something like that?
Yeah, it was on Nova. I mean, like 40%
Yeah.
of the population has it. I mean, they made it like some sort of a package where you could watch it for free, but still a lot of people didn't see it. They had to get streams and catch links offline. So, I mean, that's another tragedy, but, that's...
Yeah, I watch it on something called Balkanium down here, which is massive value for money.
Balkanium's great. Balkanium's awesome.
But that's another story for another day. But I almost bought a Cadillac at halftime. That's how good the telecast was, right? So they're things that are out of our control, and we've just got to get on with life. Because listen, at the end of the day, we won again this morning, and a lot of fancy teams didn't. It will happen again tomorrow, because we're coming right down to the very end of this international cycle. Teams are tired. They've been travelling. They've been in and out of suitcases every day, every second day, in and out of planes. Let me tell you, I've seen the charter flight that the Serbian national team go on, out of the likes of Moldova, Armenia, and
not pretty.
Azerbaijan.
Not first class.
It isn't. It's not pretty. So, I'll put it this way: they're not catching up on movies. I can tell you that much. So listen. Milos shall lead us towards the Azerbaijan game, but it's like, job well done. But we need more. We need to be in a situation where either A, we don't need to rely on the Portugal game, or B, that we take Portugal's scalp and finish first, because that's when we know we have totally turned the corner in terms of our mentality and in terms of our aims and our goals, what we want as a football team.
Great point, Scully. Exactly, and it's very hard to come back from a 2-goal lead against one of the best teams in the world. I have high doubts that one of our past teams would have been able to overcome that result.
Oh, no, that's a 5. If you're Stanislav Tombakovic is leading that, that's a 4-0 game easy.
Right.
That's where Pixie gets my credit. I mean, he turned that team around, and he gave them a boost at halftime, whether it's because of his playing ability or whether it's because of his tactical knowledge, and I think it's both, and because of his approach. Experience as well. He turned that team around. He gave it a boost, and he made logical changes. And another thing that other people pointed out, he wasn't stubborn. He said, he didn't go, no, I'm keeping this formation because I know best. He said, no, it's not working. I'm going to make a change. That's where he gets my biggest respect, because his adjustments in the game, that's what makes a really good manager, your adjustments to the game. Because anyone can prepare, but if you can adjust to what's going on, it's like a chess match. If you know what's going on, if you can make adjustments properly, that's the mark of a good manager. And I was keep in mind, this is coming, I was very fearful of that. And I was very fearful of his ability to adapt to teams, because we heard him say, I'm not really going to pay attention to the other team. I'm just going to focus on playing pretty football. And he actually blew me away with his tactical knowledge. Yeah, and most of his tactical decisions were spot on. And he gets a lot of credit from me. That's the biggest achievement, I would say, of this whole 3-day cycle, that he proved himself not to be just a great motivator. He proved himself to be a tactically capable manager. So far, whether he stays as such, we'll see. But so far, he's passed the bar mightily. I just wanted to get that last point out. Okay, now on to
I'll say this as well. He doesn't wait too long to make substitutions.
Yes.
He knows the right substitutions to make. We've seen this in the past where our managers wait till like the 78th minute to make a sub, and then
it's a wrong sub as well.
But the other thing we've got to keep in mind as well is that the game has changed, whether it be momentarily or permanently, due to how many substitutions we can make. Mm-hmm. Right? This is also unprecedented. You know what I mean? So, and you've got then more opportunity to Milos, to go to your point, Alexa, to go to your point as well, brother. Is the fact is that we can make those adjustments because we have more opportunities to do so.
Of course, and exactly, and this just speaks a lot to the character and the mentality change of this team, because the past teams would not have come back from that 2-goal lead. I can guarantee that. And the way we came out for the second half was like we were a team on a mission, and we do not see that often with our national team. Either we come out to the second half to protect the lead, or we come out the second half worse than we were in the first half, which is often the case that we see, right? And it's very rare to see us come out with that type of intensity, that type of game plan and determination into a second half, especially against one of the best teams in the world and the defending European champions, which was amazing in my opinion. And I think it's a great sign going forward that they are believing in what they are hearing, and that they're behind the manager, and that the manager has their attention. And you can tell that he's talked personally with a lot of them. He's mentioned himself that he's talked to SMS, he's talked to Taj, he's talked to Mitrovic. He's had conversations with all these guys. I'm sure he's talked to everybody on the team that same way and asked them, what can I do for you and what I want you to do for me. And so far, so good. And now we will move on to today's game against Azerbaijan. Of course, we didn't make it easy on ourselves. 2-1 victory thanks to 2 absolutely sublime goals by our man Alexander Mitrovic, who saved us for the 1,000th time. I wish I could. One day I'll do a stat summary of how many times his goals have won us points. I'm sure it's something ridiculous, and I'm sure it's a higher percentage than most national team strikers in the world currently. But amazing performance by him. He's got 5 goals now in the last week. Scott Parker, I mean, if this guy doesn't start him the next Fulham game, he's just got to go. I mean, what are you doing? You're keeping this guy on the bench. Your system doesn't suit him, of course, and he doesn't have the same quality in Fulham that he does around the national team. But a player of his quality, his determination, his effort, you got to find time, and you got to find a way to make the team work around him. And even tonight, though, Mitrovic, you can say he could have put the game away earlier, because he did miss those 2 great chances before Azerbaijan equalized in the second half from that clumsy penalty that was conceded by Filip Kostic. But in the end, he scored an amazing goal, got us the win. And as you guys mentioned, nervy defending at the end. We just seem to not know how to play with a lead.
Right.
Just give the ball away too much. Also, we lose shape a lot. When we scored our goal right after, we saw that Azerbaijan was attacking more. But also, we started counter-attacking more, but with even more bodies than we were doing so when it was tied. So we're just losing a bit of shape there. So just another thing we have to work on, because our defending at the best times is not great, and especially it's not great once we're out of position and the shape is lost and we're on the run. And it's going to cost us a lot against a lot better teams. It could have cost us more today. Rakic had a couple of good saves, and the Azerbaijan players, if we're honest, they missed a couple of goals, shots that players of better quality would have probably put away, especially those couple chances they had at breakaways and things like that. So all in all, I think today was actually our worst game of the 3, which is surprising because we played the least quality team today, but also not surprising if you follow the national team in our history. These away trips to ex-Soviet countries are a disaster for us. We dropped points in the past to Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Estonia, Armenia.
You just named them, dude. All of them.
All of them. We lost points away to all of them. And the one time we didn't do that was against Georgia, the last World Cup qualifying.
And even that was like pulling teeth. I mean, you remember that game we were down at halftime? It was hard.
Yeah, that was a very similar game to this one, actually, where Georgia was very good, just like Azerbaijan were very good. And, we got it out in the end and got some nice goals. And we took all our chances, basically, in our quality.
But boys, can I just say, when you mentioned the ex-Soviet republics, so when Miloš, you and Lorca realise all your cryptocurrency wealth, there is nothing better than an away trip to an ex-Soviet country. It is like I've done Moldova, the Ukraine, Russia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. It is one of the best away trips you've ever done in your life. So, Miloš, sell 2 Bitcoins, and when the fans come back, we're all going with you. Okay, brother?
All right, there you go. Well, I think Luka bought the dip, so he's probably doing very well today. So.
Hell yeah, man.
Luka, bro, what were your thoughts on the game today and our performance?
Yeah, before I get into the game, man, I just want to make a quick point that our team right now, I think it has to be said, it's just much more than 11 players. It's a lot more than that. You know, we have
and these 3 games proved that.
exactly.
These 3 games proved that.
Exactly, man, and that they can all play in the system, and that we have obviously more depth in certain positions than others. But it's beautiful to see because that just gives you so much more versatility in what you can do with the team, and you can surprise teams. You can surprise your opponents with that. So I'm really liking that aspect of it. Even when we saw the
right, he used so many players in these games. He rotated. He gave so many guys a chance.
right, and even when we saw that first lineup against Ireland, we were all like, what's going on here? Is he like resting players or whatever? But it must be said in hindsight now, the man knew what he was doing. 7 points from 3 games doesn't lie. Um, I will probably have to disagree with you a little bit, Milos, on that this was our worst game of the 3. I actually think that the Ireland game was the worst game of the 3. I thought today's game against Azerbaijan was unique in that we actually came out like the better team for once. Out of the 3 games, we came out to win, and all the way up to and a little bit past Mitrovic's goal, we were really, really dominating. I mean, that first half was our half. Now I don't know what happened there. Maybe we got tired. Obviously, Tadic played all 3 games, played a lot of minutes in all of those games. Mitrovic played a lot of minutes. I don't know if the defense played a lot of minutes, but I don't know if we got tired and that's the reason we started losing our shape or whatnot. But it also must be said that Azerbaijani team has quality. And that Italian coach of theirs has definitely got the tactics down. They're a physical team. I think anybody who has to travel all the way over there to Baku to play Azerbaijan is going to struggle to get out unscathed. I think even when Portugal goes there, if they haven't played them, they didn't play them, right? They played them in Lisbon.
No, they played them. They played them in Italy, but it was a home game. But they played in Italy.
Okay,
because
yeah.
and whatnot.
Right.
But, they have to go to Baku.
Okay, so yeah, I think even they will they'll struggle a little bit. So that has to be said. We have this thing where we always keep giving teams chances. We did it in the Portugal game in a different way in that we didn't do the proper marking, and Milinkovic just had probably the worst game he's had for the national team. But even in the Azerbaijani game, we gifted their forward a couple of chances, clear-cut chances against the goalkeeper where Rajkovic had to make some great saves. And I think that is the biggest thing that Pixie can do for this team. Forget about anything else. It is getting our mentality right in the back where we stop making those dumbass mistakes. And I think if he can solve that puzzle, I think everything else will fall into place. Because once we have the confidence to play the ball from the back and not give up those easy chances and not put them on a silver platter for our opponents, I think that's going to do boatloads for the team. Overall, in the game, I mean, what to say, thank God for Mitrovic. Where the hell would we be without him? That's just bottom line. A few great performances. Radonjic, like you guys said, he did have one of his typical games, but at the same time he did make a lot of runs behind the defense, and we did almost become a little bit too one-dimensional, where Tadic was just trying to put a weighted pass in between the center backs to Radonjic to try to carve over that defense. But at the same time, it's got to be said that Radonjic was the one making those runs, whereas sometimes we do have a problem with people almost staying a little too stagnant in the attacking third. I mean, kind of waiting for Tadic or somebody to create something out of nothing. So I can't be I can't be too angry about today's game. Like I said, I think any team that goes to Baku is going to struggle. I'm just happy we came out with 3 points. Even Alexa mentioned that the way that we were playing, if we get 3 points out of this, we're good, and we should be happy with that. So that's where I'm at.
Look, great points, and you're right about Azerbaijan. They are a very solid team. If you look at their recent results, they're basically drawing everybody or losing 1-0, or losing close games. Their manager, he did take, well, I don't want to say he took Albania to the Euros. He bunkered Albania to the Euros, and they got a big helping hand from UEFA, but he still got them there in the end in a roundabout way. I guess we'll give him that credit. Okay, I'm still mad, but it's right, whatever it is.
There's nothing wrong with holding a grudge, just as long as it doesn't do anything to your health. All right?
He's manager. He knows how to up and play organized and trouble teams and get those results. And he's been doing it in the Nations League. If you look at their results, I don't think they had any losses. I don't think they had one or two losses, but most of them were just draws, goalless draws, or 1-1 draws. So they're a tough team, and everybody in our group was struggling back.
And let's keep in mind that Portugal even had a tough time scoring against this team, and it took an own goal for them to win. So that's an important point too.
Exactly. Veli, what were your thoughts on the game today?
I've got to agree with you guys. It's going to be very hard for a lot of teams to go all the way to Baku in Azerbaijan to play them. I've got to have a massive shout out to the Azerbaijani fullback Medvedev. The ability for you, the young man, to go to Miami, beat Francis Tiafoe 6-1, 6-3 in the quarterfinals of the Miami Masters, and then go back and put an Azerbaijani football shirt on and play a full 90 minutes, brother. That's a credit to you. Listen, it was our most important result of the three. Now, in context to what happened in the last two games, if we were to get a point out of that and only get 4 points out of 9, far out, 7 points out of 9, or have I done my maths incorrectly, but 5 points out of 9, I beg your pardon, and the ability to get 7 points out of 9 is a massive difference, because at the end of the day, in 50 years' time, when we're all sitting drinking beer, holding our walking sticks, we're going to look back at that result and they'll go, znaš šta, dobili smo 2-1 kod njih, super. You know what I mean? No one's going to say, oh, we didn't play well that game, we didn't deserve it, pičke materine sort of thing. It was the most important result of this international cycle. Again, it was we didn't come out very well in the second half, albeit the Azerbaijani manager did tweak it and he played a more high-tempo pressing type scenario, of which we didn't appreciate against the Republic of Ireland. We definitely didn't appreciate against Scotland. So I think teams are going to notice that, and the ability to press us for 90 minutes. Listen, at the end of the day, no team likes to be pressed, especially at a high quality and a high tempo and high consistency. But that's going to be a weak point for us. In the first half, we were good. I thought our passing was rather crisp. Again, I still maintain, I reckon a lot of coffee was had in this last 8 or 9 day international camp that we've had. I think there's been a lot of discussions, because Radonjic, I think even Artur Mitrovic was surprised by the quality of that cross that Radonjic did in the first half. That was obviously something that's come to his surface in his mindset to say, I'm capable of this type of quality on the cross or on the pass, as he demonstrated in the Portugal game, and the decision making. I just needed somebody to plant that seed of quality in my head, of which I think Dragan Stojkovic has done. So that was noted. I thought Artur Mitrovic was getting a bit selfish. I know that I mentioned that in our chat before he scored his second goal. But listen, boys, well done to you all. It's the most important result that we had of this international cycle. And again, in 50 years' time, we just got to remember that they won. It was a little ugly, but let's keep going, fellas.
Ugly, but we'll take it. Alex,
Absolutely.
what were your thoughts on the game today?
Well, I'll get into the Mitro appreciation, monologue that I've prepared. But Azerbaijan, you guys have said it well. I mean, they've got guys playing. A lot of guys are playing in Karabakh, which is a respectable European team, and like you said, their manager has been around the block. And Portugal struggled against them. I think it was expected that we'd struggle against them. The lineup surprised me. I was expecting much more rotation. Certainly wasn't expecting Tadic to start a third straight game.
Me too. I thought that was a huge surprise. Yep.
Yeah, and in terms of the issues that I would point out, most definitely our inability to play through the midfield. I thought that Gudan and Maksimovic have their value, but I think in terms of distribution, we were really struggling to play our passes. A lot of it came from the back. One big positive, Orspaj thought he was excellent. He got the hell beat out of him. They tackled him. They beat him. They elbowed him the whole 9 yards. He looked like he was injured from the 20th minute onwards, but he was very solid, very composed, good into passing as well. And I thought the whole defense was very good. I mean, there wasn't really anything they could do. But Ikovic came out and had a great performance, even with his feet, which is shocking to say, but he's actually good in distribution. And, of course, the saves he made were great. And the fact that he's actually proven that he can come out and claim crosses and position himself so much better shows his improvement, because he started off like Stojkovic and even Sakrai. He was basically an on-the-line goalkeeper who rarely came out for crosses, and his reflexes weren't that great. But he's improved so much since then, and I think he's claimed that spot all the better. The wing play I thought was expected from us because we have the pace to hurt them that way. But, it was obviously something that we just couldn't get going because they scouted us much better. But the goals we scored, both goals were very nice. The first goal was a great moment from Spice taking the ball away. Tadic, as usual, shilling himself, and then the ball goes to Mitro. He cuts inside, and then you know the rest. The penalty we conceded, that was one of the things I mentioned in one of the podcasts before this game, was that I would hope we have the capacity to actually threaten on set pieces and be organized on set pieces, and yet set pieces have been our biggest downfall, and headers as well. We just can't seem to clear the ball. Bad move from Kostic, which is to be expected because he's an offensive wingback. His defending is not that great, even for Frankfurt. And when you have things like that are going to happen, but those are the things, just growing pains that are eventually going to be wilted out. And we were under pressure for periods of that game. We were not able to get the ball in key positions, and the selfishness, you can argue, as you said, was a problem for Mitrovic, but I think it's an indication that he feels his hunger back again. He feels like he can score any time, which is what he used to feel like, and I think in some ways it was good. Now, if we hadn't won the game, maybe it would have been perceived as bad, but we got the big result. That second goal as well, just brilliant play from milinkovic-savic. I think the biggest positive you can take away from this game was that our goalkeeping situation was better, and that it showed that even if Tadic isn't playing at his best and you sub him off, Savic can take the game, because he was, in that second half, he was growing in confidence and in efficiency as the game was going on, and he was the one who was getting the ball to Mitrovic, and once we got past their midfield, which was very well organized, and we got at their back line, they didn't know what hit him. You could see that they were terrified of Mitrovic, they were backing off, and you give him that kind of space, he's going to score. That finish, that left foot finish and the volley, just top notch, and I would have been hoping for some other guys getting minutes. It's a bit of a shame that the Desic didn't get more time. Certainly thought Ivan Ilic and Grujic maybe could have got a few more minutes as well, but everyone got playing time. Shame that the worst tactical decision of the whole cycle was putting Živkovic at left wing back. I don't know what he was thinking there. He had Mladenovic as well on the bench. Živkovic could have actually played the Tadic or Đuričić role very well because of his niftiness and because of his technical ability and shooting ability. To put him at wing back just didn't make sense. But we grinded out a win, like I said. Turkey's drawn with Latvia. Teams that have dropped points so many times in the cycle, and they're going to keep dropping points. If we would have dropped points today, it would have undone a lot of the good work we did, and it was important to just get a win. However, we know, no matter how, it doesn't matter how you get a win, you push on, you push forward, and some guys played some really good performances as well. Pavlovic, again, consistently good today, being able to come out and intercept those cross-field passes. Same thing with Spice. I think our defense is going to.
I think that was Pavlovic was the first interception for the goal, right? That was Pavlovic, I think.
That was actually Spice, but Pavlovic actually stopped a really good counterattack. The ball's being pinged on the right side, and their winger had a clear chance and had a lot of space, and Pavlovic ran like 15 yards, sprinted and slid it, and got the ball in a dangerous situation. And that bulldog-like approach, as Martin Tyler would say, was really beneficial for us. But this whole cycle has gone in the shadow of one man, who I will spend a few minutes on, and you guys will as well. There's no one I love more, there's no one I respect more in this team than Aleksandar Mitrovic. And first of all, his achievement is a monumental achievement. It's a monumental footballing achievement. People can make the argument that there are more games today than there were at the time of Stjepan Bobic and, Sava Milošević, guys like that. Mitra's goal scoring record and his ratio is ridiculous. He has like 40 goals in 60 games, so he's scoring 2 goals every 3 games. That's better than Bobic had. That's way better than Sava Milošević had. The variety of goals as well. We saw a chip, we saw a header, we saw a long distance shot, we saw Poster's goal, we saw everything against different types of opponents.
Only 11. I just want to add one thing else. Only 11 of his goals for national team, was 41 have been with his head.
Exactly. So people that are saying he's just heading the ball and all he does is use his physical ability, he doesn't have the footballing chops, they don't have a right to say anything. In his approach as well, there was an example of that in his career earlier, that the positive approach is going to pay off for him. If you remember the game between Fulham and Huddersfield, when Kamara took the penalty off him, and he was the only one that actually gave Kamara support after he missed it. And then 10 minutes later, he scores the winner against Huddersfield. Same thing happens here, because everyone jumped on him after the Scotland game. Everyone jumped on him for this and that, because he hasn't been playing it for him. And he's had a difficult time. Now, nothing terribly tragic has happened to him because there are worse things than having a goal-scoring dry spell, but he's had a tough time in his job. And his consistency, his complete determination, his quality as well in terms of his hold of play, the way he passes the ball, his sprinting, his pressing as well for a guy of that size. There's not a bad word you can say about him. He's dragging this team along. He's giving it the confidence. He's the only player that everyone unanimously loves, because you're always going to have those Partizan or Zvezda fans that are going to take shots or whatever you want to say, but everyone loves him. Everyone should love him. The emotions he gave in that interview after he broke the record almost made me cry. And everything he's getting, he's deserving. And the goals he's scoring as well, the quality of opponents, because people can say, well, he scored a lot against Lithuania and Luxembourg. Well, first of all the top goal scorers, they've scored a lot of goals against weak opposition, but he has goals against Switzerland and Croatia and France and Portugal and Ireland and Russia and Turkey. I mean, these are seriously good opponents in big-time games. And like you guys have said, he's played in teams that haven't had that great success, where he's been the lone option. I mean, that Nations League cycle, when he scored 7 goals in 6 games, we had nothing. It was just give the ball to him and let's see what he can do. And he put the whole team on his back and produced. He deserves everything he's getting. He deserves it all the more. I would have no problems with him being the first name on the team sheet for every game, because he should be. His determination, his commitment. He's becoming not just a cult hero, he's becoming a national hero, and he's showing his quality on the pitch. And like you said, if Parker doesn't start him now, then they don't deserve to stay up. And considering they have a dry spell, I think it's time for him to get back in the team. I love him like a brother and like a family member, and I wish he scores another 40 goals. And the way he's playing, he might. He deserves it all the more. And I'm so happy the way he scored those goals after such a dry spell. All the love for the man. Great player, great man. Nothing but superlatives.
And Alexa, let's not forget, he's doing all of this at just 26 years old, which is unreal. I mean, he's just getting into his prime, if we're being honest here. And if I'm other teams playing Serbia and I see Mitrovic starting, I would be very scared. That's for damn sure.
That's right. And one thing I'll say as well is, after the penalty miss against Scotland and after his winter of struggles with Fulham, we all said that he's going to bounce back, because we all know his character. We all know what type of man he is. We all know how the effort he gives. And we all know that he dies for the shirt. And Veli has asked our players many a times to, do it for the shirt. And one guy that you can never question is Mitrovic, because he always gives his all for the shirt. And we just knew. I knew he's going to come back. We all knew he was going to come back. Hopefully he gets a move out of Fulham in the summer. He can go to Serie A, score a lot of goals, and score a lot more goals for a national team. But even if he doesn't, it doesn't matter, because he's always going to perform for us, because he's just that good. He cares so much, and at the end of the day, his determination is unmatched, and he's going to get the job done regardless of the opposition, regardless of his struggles in his personal life or his coaches or his club form. It's irrelevant. We all know he wants it. We all see that he wants it in his post-game interview in tears. He had me in tears, and that was everything. And that's all, as fans, that we ask for our players. Maximum effort and maximum love for the shirt, and he's got it every time.
Every single goal that he scored, every single goal, as we would say, every one of those goals, he's busted his ass off to get them.
Absolutely.
Nothing's been given to him. He was basically written off in Partizan for not being good enough, and then Vukašević created him out of nothing. He wasn't really given much of a chance at Anderlecht when he initially came in at Newcastle. He busted his ass off to get everything. He wasn't a God-gifted talent. He wasn't some blue-chip prospect. He's worked for everything he's gotten, and that's why it makes it all the more special. He deserves every bit of the accolades he's getting.
The only advice I would ever give to Artur Mitrovic is this. Brate, when you shave your head, you look really, really mean. When you let it grow, you look like a panda bear, and all I want to do is give you a hug. I'm sure you'd give me a hug back, but brother, that's the only advice that I could ever give you, because, there's things, I love him. He plays for the shirt. The only person that ever gets an exemption for me for playing in a shirt is Nemanja Gudel, because one game after Ireland in Dublin in the hotel room, he was wearing a Snoop Dogg T-shirt, and I went, that looks absolutely unbelievable. Admittedly, I don't know who Snoop Dogg is, but I went, oh my God, he looks really, really cool. You know what I mean? So he's the only exemption about playing from the shirt scenario that I give.
And something else, one of our Twitter followers mentioned this as well. Mitrovic has 41 goals for the national team, and very few of those goals have been from the penalty spot. Well, other top scorers, they're scoring a bunch of penalties. And also, of all of those 41 goals he scored, how many of those goals was he beaten up on the way to scoring?
Right.
It's just
absolutely
all the time. He's hammered in the box all the time.
He's getting tackled. He's getting elbowed. He's getting punched. I mean, the whole bit, as you're saying, he's getting the hell beat out of him.
He should be getting way more calls from the refs than he does, but he does it because he doesn't milk it. You know, he doesn't milk it. He doesn't act up for it. Sometimes he does, but it's very rare. And he's our heart and soul. And with him in this form, it's encouraging.
But nobody can take away his goals per game ratio. The difference between that and Savo Milosevic and Stefan Bobek and all that was there were more games that were available, right? So, you know, I guess he has Mitrovic is in the era of playing against every single ex-Soviet republic. The Czechoslovakia has been split in two. Obviously, what happened, you know, u našo prostorima, you know, that's what happened. But on the other hand, Bobek didn't play against San Marino, Liechtenstein, and all that type of stuff in his era. So no one can ever take away his goals per game ratio. It's just that he has more games in a shorter period of time that are available to him. And I don't know of any occasion where games were made up or friendlies were made up in the Artem Mitrovic era so he can boost that ratio. All of those were in meaningful full A internationals, and so all credit to him. One more thing, fellas, very quickly, is by the end of tomorrow, I can only work out one team. I think Belgium have won playing all three games in their qualifying cycle here, but only Portugal and Serbia have had 7 points or more. I don't think by the end of tomorrow's qualifiers, there'll be many teams who've got that return out of this first three qualifiers, so credit to them.
That's right. It's not easy. Teams are improving all the time. We know from playing Luxembourg in the Nations League that they're an improving side. They gave us trouble. We did win those games, but you know they came back. They scored a couple of goals on us. It was not easy, and it won't be easy in September in Belgrade. But I keep going back to what Lucas said: work in progress, and you know if you follow the NBA, trust the process as well. I think we've seen enough from these three games to fully get behind Pixie and the team. And I'm very encouraged by what I've seen with how little time he's had. And hopefully it just keeps getting better. I'm sure he's going to have I'm sure we'll play some friendlies before the Euros, as most teams will be looking for friendlies at that time. We'll probably have camp. Maybe we'll spend 2 weeks together with the team, and that'll be another big growing session and another opportunity to get better. But work in progress, encouraging so far. I think everybody's behind him already. We see the effort, we see the determination, we see the will, and we see the quality, of course. And Pixie has done a great job, and he's making us all believe again. And that's all we ever ask for. You know, just give us a chance, give us some hope, and you know we'll do the rest, and we'll be good supporters like we know how to be. And Veli, before we go, any
shout out time? You better believe it. So shout out number one, two very quick ones. Shout out number one is to Fitzroy City, Serbia. They're a team in Victoria, which is a state of around 6 or 7 million people. So they play in the second tier of the Victorian Premier League, the northwest zone of the Victorian Premier League. They've been going since 1963, so that's no mean feat as well. They have a team, they have a federation team, they have a masters team, they have 3 women's teams and their junior teams. So their season started weekend before last, I believe. So a massive shout out to Fitzroy City, Serbia. And last but not least, this is a huge shout out, and talk about work in progress. I want to give a massive shout out to the ground announcer at the Rajko Mitic Stadium in Belgrade. The poor bastard is obviously reading off a script, because when he is, I think this is the definition of work in progress. When the man is thanking 55,000 empty seats for coming to the game, I think, brother, you are a man after my own heart. You know what I mean? Like, so a massive shout out to him. For a second in the Ireland game, I thought it was Luka that was talking, but as it went on, even Luka wouldn't talk like that. So, brother, whoever you are, I can't wait to buy you a drink, and I reckon that's a massive shout out to him, our ground announcer at the Rajko Mitic Stadium.
Hey man, I give the same effort at work as well, so I can only appreciate his effort.
I want to, if it's okay, I would like to give one final shout out, if I may, to one of the groundskeepers for the security guards for picking up Cristiano's captain's armband and actually putting it up for auction to pay for the treatment of Gavrilo Đurđević, the small. The boy from Kragujevac who needs a lot of money raised, and
beautiful.
That's really top notch. I mean, it was hilarious at first, but I'm so glad that somebody did it. Word of note, as I'm looking at this right now, anybody who's bidding up and can't pay up, you're a dickhead. All the people who are actually putting money, you're heroes. All of you. It's a great thing. It shows once again the charitable spirit of our people, which can be questioned at times, but always comes through. Great thing. Please go out and spread the word, support it, because the poor boy needs a lot of money. I think $2 million is what I said, but the bids are going up and up and up from people that can actually pay. Wonderful gesture, wonderful thing. More of it. It's just a great thing. Great thing to sign off on.
Amen. And 7 points through 3 games. A great start to qualifying, and trust the process. Have a great night, everyone.